Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. So today we are going to continue our Terraform training. Today is day 6 out of the 10 days for the training. Today is day 6. And for today, we are going to look at Terraform AWS module and Terraform custom modules. Also, we are going to look at Terraform counts. And finally, we will look at Terraform for each. So without wasting much of our time, the first thing that I want to do is to open the GitHub, where we have our repository. I will pull the repository should in case that is the first thing that you want to do, should in case a new thing has been added to the Terraform repository. So I will go to the repository, which is Terraform YouTube, and make a Terraform pull this repository into my environment. So I'm going to move back to switch to main environment, which is main branch. That is Terraform checkout main. I want to check out into the Git checkout main. Yeah, Git start. So I want to check out into main. Now I'm currently in the main repository, and from main repository I want to do a git pull to pull if there is a new update in the repository, which is it, which there is. So I've pulled the code in the repository. So before I start working with today, before I start today's work, I want to make a copy of, I want to make a new branch so that I'm not working directly in the main. Oh, sorry guys, I don't know that I wasn't sharing my screen. So the first thing I did was to clone my repository. I went to the GitLab. Today being the 6th day, the first thing to do is to clone the repository. So I copy the URL to the repository, then I put it on my I make sure that I switch to my main environment. Then I do git pull. I pull the repository, so it is up to date now because I pulled it initially when my screen was blank. So now I'm currently having up to date, my code are up to date. So the first thing I want to do before I start today's training is to make a new branch. So I will work on that branch. So to make a new branch, just do git checkout -b, then the name of the branch. So I'm just going to call this branch day 6. So I think it's going to be better that way. So now I'm currently in day 6. So anything I'm doing now is not going to be directly in the main branch, but after we finish, I'm going to push it to the Git repository, to the remote repository. Then from there we can merge it. So now that I have my code, and let me clear this. So I'm going to move this a little bit down. So now that my code is up to date, the next thing for me to do is to configure my system. So I need a new access key. So I need to go to my AWS account to get a access key. So I need to sign into my AWS account. So go to the account. This is the account I have access to. I'm already a administrator access, so that I won't have any access issue. So I'll go to the Windows, then copy the manual add a profile to your AWS credential. So I'm going to copy this, then go to my AWS credential, open the credential, which is stored in the AWS, which is stored in the home directory of the current user in the .aws folder. So I'm going to do credits. Then when I open this, all I just want to do is to clear out all of this credential, then so that I can put in a new credential there. So I'm going back to copy the credential again, then put this new credential here, then save the file. So when I save the file now, I'm good to go because now my system is configured for today's training. So the next thing for us to do now is to start today's training proper. All right, the first thing that we will look at today is AWS, Terraform AWS modules. If you want to use module, you can either use the default one from AWS, or you can create your own custom one. So we're going to look at the two, but the first one that we're going to look at is the one from AWS. So last week we were doing this last week, but it was giving us an error from we couldn't detect the directory. So what actually caused that was I just supposed to restart my system because I did not restart my system. So that's why it was a glitch. But after I restarted my system, everything was working fine. But today I've decided to do the whole thing afresh. So the first thing I want to do is to create a new folder where I'm going to put my module folder inside. So I'm going to go to the root directory and create a folder, and I'm going to call this one, I'm going to call it default. I'll just represent it with D module, or you can just call it module, that is fine too, module. So inside that module, I want to have a file. So whatever file, because this is going to be the default, it's better let me just name it default so that I can identify it. So I'm just going to represent the default with D. So this is going to be the default module. So inside this default module, I want to have a file there. So whatever module that I want to create, whether it is EC2 or S3, so I'm just going to give the file the name of the module. So let's create, for instance, let's have an EC2 module. So this is going to be EC2.tf. So we want to use the default EC2 instance module from AWS. So if you want to create a module, the first thing you need to do is to write the module block, and the module block you have to name it. So the name that I want to give my module block, I'll just call it default, or let me just call it web app. So I just call it web app. So it's every module need a source. So the source is what I need now. So I need to use AWS, the source. I need to use the source from AWS. So I mean the source from Terraform, sorry, the source from Terraform. Then all I just need to do is to open Terraform modules by going to terraform.io. So from terraform.io, I need to go to the registry, then go to the, so instead of the provider, I will go to the modules. So you can see these are there are different kind of modules that you can use. You can use the AWS module, you can use the VPC, you can use every other one. You can even use security group. But the one that I want to use is EC2. So I'm going to scroll down and start searching for EC2. But if you don't want to continue searching, you can just come here into this resource here and just put EC2 there. So it's going to take you to EC2 modules, or you can select AWS. So it will limit whatever whatever is bringing to EC2. So I'm going to search for EC2 modules. And here it is. So I'll just click on it. So this is the EC2 module. So it gives me an example that I can use, but the first thing I want to do is here. You can see this is the provider instruction. So I can just copy this, then go to my code file and just replace the one I have. Then I can rename this as my web app. So this is EC2 module. This is all I just need to do for the AWS, for the Terraform custom or default modules for AWS. So with this, I can just run Terraform. Anytime you you modify your modules or you create a new module, you want to do Terraform init so that it can download the module on your system. Say no credential source found. So I need to provide credentials because inside the folder that I'm currently on, I need to provide credential inside that folder. So for me to provide credential so that I can let me switch to that folder, cd into the module folder. Then from here I can run Terraform init. So while I'm waiting for this, if you look at this default Terraform module, this default is a separate folder on its own. So the configuration or the key that I have in the root directory will not be seen by this module. So if I want to run Terraform inside this module, I need to provide its own providers. So I need to have a provider inside this module directly because this Terraform will see this directory or this folder as a separate directory. So inside that provider, I need to have I'm inside that Terraform, inside the modules folder, I need a provider inside the provider.tf, and I also need my backend so that my backend can also be used there. So I'm going to call it backend.tf. So both the provider and the backend, I will just go down and copy the one that I already have before. So that is like a new project on its own. The modules folder is like a new folder and a new project on its own. So it needs its own provider and it needs its own backend. So I will go to the backend that I have before. I will just copy this, then modify it. So modifying it, I have to make sure that I'm not, because if I do not change this key, that means it's going to replace the one that I have before. So I will just rename it. You can name this terraform.tf state anything you want. It's not necessary that it has to be terraform.tf state. I can put this one to be 1 terraform.tf, terraform1.tf state is still going to work fine. And also I want to uncomment this. So every other thing is fine. The main thing that I don't want is that I do not want the key to be overwritten because I have a key. All these projects, all this configuration that we did before, they are stored inside Terraform. They are stored inside this key, which is YouTube folder /terraform.tf state file in our S3 bucket. And I don't want to overwrite that. So all I just need to do is to create another Terraform 1.tf state. So inside the YouTube folder now, I'll be having two files. One is going to be terraform.tf state, and the other one will be terraform 1.tf state. So with that being done, then I also need a provider. So I'll go there, also copy this provider, and go back into the Terraform folder, then put the provider here. So all these projects, all this one you are seeing outside like this, they are separate projects on their own. Then this module, the modules is a separate project and has a separate folder. So it needs its own provider, and it also needs its own backend, and that is the configuration that we just did. So with that outside, I mean with that done, then the only thing I now need to do, make sure that you are inside the D modules, otherwise you might be getting an error. So now I can now do Terraform init dash reconfigure. You can either do Terraform init alone, but the reason why I'm doing Terraform init dash reconfigure is because I put in a new, I uncomment in a new configuration here by putting the new provider and putting the new bucket. I mean the new S3 key. It's a failure to, okay, that is fine. So this I have, if you look at it, I have a version, a different version here, and in my module also I have a different version in my module. I may just want the both of them to be the same version, so I would just prefer to use this version for both of them. So inside the provider, I might specify that I want to use the same version. Okay, it's still complaining about the provider, so I'll just do, they asked me to do Terraform init dash upgrade, so I will do that. Okay, that is successfully done. Then I can now do Terraform, let me clear my screen and do Terraform plan. So it still wants to override what I have before. You can see as it want to delete it. So what I just want to, what I will do here is just to make sure that it doesn't delete this. So because of this, I might just remove the YouTube entirely, so that it is, and then I will rename this one a separate. I might just call it module. The name does not necessarily have to be terraform.tf state. I can say module dash terraform.tf state. That will still work. Whenever you modify the backend, the S3 backend, you need to do Terraform init dash migrate state, because I migrate it to a separate state. Migrate state, and I'll say yes. Terraform plan. Okay, I need to go to that bucket and manually delete that because normally I made a mistake for when I said yes, I'm supposed to say no so that it does not migrate the state so that I can use a brand new state. So let me go to the S3 bucket and just delete the state that I have there before. So this is the S3 bucket. I want to make sure I know what is going on inside that bucket. So this is the bucket here, and this is the wait, let me see. Where was the we have Terraform backend 1201. So okay, this is the bucket here. And inside the bucket, you can see that we have the module, but the module here, when I say Terraform migrate state, it migrated everything that was in the other states into this new one. So that is why it saw a lot of things to be deleted. So what I will just do from here, I will manually delete these two. Then when I go back to my Terraform state, to my VS code, now I've deleted that. So when I go back to my Terraform state now, what I will do here, I will do Terraform init again so that it can initialize and it can create this module afresh. Yeah, we'll see Terraform init dash configure. We'll delete this module. Then I want to delete this too. So this is like me starting all afresh. So we configure. Say Terraform having state issue. Let me see what's going on here. Yeah, I don't have any issue again. So let me see again. Terraform init. Okay, so if you are continue having the issue like this issue is directly from AWS, and you say please wait for a minute or two and try again. So what I will just do, I will comment out the backend state so that Terraform can manually it can manually migrate the state to local. Then once everything is fine, then I can migrate the state back to S3. So I'm going to do Terraform init now. So instead of migrating the state to the backend, it will migrate the state to the local state here. It will use the local state, and once it works fine, then I can remigrate it to the backend. You will see that it will create a Terraform module.t, I mean terraform.tf state here. So once everything is fine, then I can migrate the state to the backend. Okay, now it has finished reconfiguring. So I can now do Terraform run. It's still seeing the S3 backend. Let me make sure that I'm working on the right backend. Yeah, that is correct. And this is correct as well. So I'll just do Terraform init. Okay, Terraform run. It's still giving me the state error. Still seeing the backend state. Let me see. Modify state. Yeah, my state is correct. Okay, I will just delete this backend so we can then as well. Delete this. So this is like running it from scratch. So we will not see that backend. So the Terraform init. Okay, Terraform is back. And we do Terraform plan. Okay, now it has generated the state. So the reason why it was giving us error the other time, it was saying the backend.tf file, and it wants to use that backend.tf file. But I don't know, AWS is having issue right now, so that is why I can't use the backend S3. So once I finish configuring it here, then I might bring the backend state back, the backend.tf state, and I can do state migration to the backend. But for now, this is the Terraform AWS default modules. So we are using the default modules without creating our custom one. And you can change some of this configuration. All you just need to do, for instance, if you look at what Terraform say is going to do for us, then it say it's going to use the AMI. which we do not provide it. It's just going to use it for us. And if you go down, it also say it's going to use this HTTPS token. It says it's going to use optional. All of this configuration, you can change it if you don't want to. If you don't want to use the default configuration, and you can see the volume does not have a name. So any config, and the tag too doesn't have a tag name. So any of this configuration that you want to do, just go to the Terraform module documentation. If you go to this under the Terraform modules, if you go to under the Terraform module, this is the latest one. If you scroll down, you will see that this is, if you want to make changes to the configuration, this is what you just need to do. If you look under the, if you scroll down, you will see some, you will see all of these inputs. So if you want to specify your own AMI, you will just do AMI. You can just put AMI is equal to whatever AMI ID that you want to use. And AWS is, Terraform helps you to specify the type of the string. So if you are using these inputs, then you can put inputs of string in front of it. So for instance, now if I want to change that AMI, I just need to copy this AMI, then go to my Terraform code. Then below the version, I'll just put AMI here is equal to, then I will put my own AMI number. Let me see, let me go here. I have some AMI here. So if I want to use this AMI, I'll just copy this. Then I can put my own AMI. And if I want to use tag too, then I will need to go to the file and see how do they specify tag. So if you go to under T, you will see tag. Here, this is tags. And they say you can use a map of tag. And if I click it, if I click the tag, see, I can use volume tag as well. But this tag that I want to use, say a map of tag. So being a map of tags is going to be something like, let me go back to my volume. So you're going to have tags is equal to, then inside here, you will have name is equal to, that is, if I want a name tag, I can say Terraform default module. Then if you want another thing, like maybe environment, you can say environment is equal to development. So if you want another thing apart from tag, just go back there to the, if you want to specify the instance on the subnet ID, just copy the subnet ID and underneath the tag, put subnet ID is equal to, then specify your own subnet ID. This is you using the AWS, the Terraform AWS default provider, default modules. But if you want to create your own module, if you don't want to use the Terraform default one, yes, you can create your own module as well. So here now, let's run this, then we go and create our own module if you don't want to use Terraform custom one. So I can do Terraform plan now. So if I open this up, majority of what it does not change the other time, it will now change them now. And you can see we still have the same, it's still going to create one, but now we can now modify our own value. So you can see the tag. Initially, it's not showing any tag for us, but now it has tag. Now we have an instance ID. These are the instance ID that we use. If you scroll up as well, we do not specify this this instance type, but we can change it. We can change it to T2 micro. We're going to change it now and look at the AMI. This is the AMI that we specify. Now let's quickly change the instance type before we proceed. Instance type, but make sure that it is actually spelled this way. So if you want to cross-check, you can go to this the documentation and look for the instance type. It's going to be under I, instance type, and it's spelled the same way. Instance type, and the default is T3 micro, and that is why we are having T3 micro in our configuration, but we can change this to T2 micro. So if you run Terraform plan again, it's going to change that to T2 micro instead of the T3 micro that they were using there as default. So if you go up now we can see we have changed that to T2 micro instead of the default T3 micro. So you can deploy this by doing Terraform apply, and I'm going to use auto approve so that it doesn't come back and ask me for confirmation. So here it deploys it directly to the console. It will deploy it, and we can go and check it in our console now. If you go to the Terraform, go to the AWS, let's go under EC2, you will see that a new instance is coming up. And you can see, okay, it's not showing here. Wait, let me see. Invalid subnet ID. Okay, so I will comment out the subnet ID. So possibly the reason why it's giving us an invalid subnet ID, possibly we are deploying in a wrong environment, but that shouldn't be a problem. We can troubleshoot that, but I won't be troubleshooting that here. I'll just comment it out. So let's refresh. Yeah, it's coming up now. This is it here. It's coming up, and the module is coming up. The tag name is coming up as well. So while we are waiting for that to finish, now let's go and create our own custom one. This has finished now. So let's go and create our own custom Terraform modules. So to create your own custom Terraform modules, all you need to do is, I'm going to create a new folder for my own custom Terraform module. I'll just call it, instead of D, I'll call it custom module. So inside the custom module, I want to have two different files. The first file is going to be for my ec2.tf, and the second file is going to be for my, okay, I don't really need variable, but I'm going to need a provider, because that is a new folder by itself. That's a new project. So I'm going to need a provider in there. So the provider that I want to use, I'll just go and copy from one of the provider that I have before. So I'll copy this provider and just put it here. So now that I have the provider, the next thing, actually, I don't even need provider in my custom module, so I'm going to remove it. What I need is a variable. So I need to provide a variable.tf. So inside this custom module, I can just create a normal EC2 inside these custom modules. So to create a custom EC2, I'll just go to the Terraform. I'll go to the Terraform documentation, go back to browse provider, then select EC2 documentation, then I will look for EC2 here. So here, I just want to create a regular EC2 for my provider, and I will turn that regular EC2, I will turn it to modules. So this is the regular EC2, but here in the variable area, I will declare a variable called var.ami. Then in the instance area, instance type, I'll declare a variable there called variable.instance type. And for the tag, I will also declare a variable there called, I will declare a variable called variable.tag. So now, all these variables that I use, I need to go and declare them. I use the variable that is not declared. That is why I'm having these wiggle red lines. But I need to go and declare them. I need to go and define them now. So to define those variables, I just need to go to my variable file. Then the first variable that I use, I need to declare it by creating a block of variable and name it, give it the same name as the name that I used. So the name that I use here is AMI. So in my variable block, I have to name this block AMI. And I have to specify in my description, which is optional, that this is a variable for AMI, for instance AMI. Then I need to create another variable, and I need to give that variable name. So the second variable will be the variable I used here. This is an instance type. So I'm creating a variable also for my instance type, and I'm going to give it a description of this is a variable for instance type. Then the last one, which is tag. So for tag, I also need to create a variable for my tag and give it the name of tag. But this tag is going to be different from the instance type and the AMI because it's going to be a map of string, meaning that I want to use a map instead of regular string. And the way I'm going to specify that is just to put it in a bracket and give it like a name is equal to VM1, environment is equal to prod. So that is what I want to be able to do, and that is why I say is a map. If you want, you can also specify it's going to something to be a list, which is like a form of array. So these are the three variables that I need. So now for me to use this module to create any instance, those modules must provide values for these three variables. So now if I want to use this custom variable that I create here, so let's say for instance now I have another folder that's called dev. Okay, I have dev. Let me call this one staging. Let's say I have a staging folder that I want to create a staging project. So, and I want to create an EC2 for a staging project, but I want to use the module as my source. So all I just need to do is to create the EC2.tf in my staging environment, which is the staging folder. And what I just need to do here, I just need to say that I want to create an EC2 inside this module file, but the EC2 is going to use the same configuration as my custom modules. So for me to say that, I just need to create a module here and give it a name. I might give it staging EC2. So the source now, instead of me specifying the source of AWS, I mean the default AWS that we specify in the first one, all I just need to do is to specify the path to this folder. And the path to this folder is going to be specified in terms of default, I mean the C module, .c module. And you can see that it's giving me some red line. It's telling me that there are some configuration that is required that I do not provide. And you can see it say required attributes tag not specified, required attributes AMI not specified, required attributes instance type not specified. Those are the attributes that I used when I created this module, and I have to provide values for them inside this module here. So to provide values for them, you just need to call the specific variable. So we use tag. You have to use exactly the same spelling as your variable declaration. So the name of this, I use AMI, I use instance type, and I use tag. So those values must be exactly the same. They must spell the same way. So for the tag, let me put tag for instance. Okay, let me start with AMI first. So we have AMI. I need to provide value for AMI. So let me just go and get an AMI. So I'm going to use this AMI. I just need to copy this. Then I provide the AMI. Then the second one, I use instance type. Then I need to provide value for my instance type. So for this instance type, I'm using T2 nano. Then the last one is tag. So make sure it is spelled exactly the same thing. So I use tag, then I said the tag should be object. I mean, the tag should be mapped. So for it to be mapped, it has to be in this format. Then the first thing that I want to have name. I'm going to call it managed by custom module. That is the name. Then I also want to provide environment, and this is going to be for staging. This is going to be staging. So now this is all I need to provide. If you provide any other thing here, it's going to give an alarm that it is not declared and you want to use it. Whatever you are providing here, whatever keyword you are using here, must be provided in your module as well. So for instance, let me put subnet here. Subnet is equal to, and you can see immediately it's giving me red, like no, this has not been declared in the module. So if you put your mouse over it, you will see that I said unexpected attributes. Attribute named subnet is not expected here. So the only thing that is expected are those values that you declared in your variable, are those tags that you use in your variable, and those are the only things that you can put here. So now that I've declared my variable and I put every value, then the next thing is to do Terraform init. You have to do init so that the module can be downloaded. Okay, the first thing I want to do, let me make sure, you can see I'm inside a wrong folder. I need to cd inside that folder, and the folder is staging. So I need to go back inside my staging folder. But also inside that staging folder, I need a provider in my staging folder. So let me create a provider in my staging folder, and I'm just going to copy one of the provider that I have before. I'm going to give a provider.tf. So now I can switch by using cd. I want to switch to my staging. So now I'm inside my staging environment. So all I just need to do from here is to do Terraform init. And now that is done, I can now do Terraform plan. So let's see what Terraform has for us. So the benefit of Module now is that I don't have to go and be doing the configuration again. For instance, if you know credential, so I need to provide credential, that credential as by provider line 11 is giving me an error in my provider line 11. Okay, here I need to uncomment this. Okay, you can see now it has given me what is going to deploy. I can tell Terraform to go ahead and deploy this by run Terraform apply. I don't want it to come back and ask me for approval. I'm going to say auto approve. So I can go to my AWS now and see what Terraform is going to do. So go to the AWS, refresh, then we should see another one coming up, and you can see another one is pending, is coming up, and you can see the name managed by custom module. And this one was Terraform default module, the one we created earlier. So if you go back now, it has successfully finished it, successfully deployed. So if one good thing about this now is that if you have a custom configuration, if you want to use exactly the same configuration in every environment, maybe in your own organization, you have to test a particular configuration before you use it. Immediately you finish testing that configuration and you see that that configuration is good, then you can use that same configuration to deploy in every environment. So here I have staging here. I can create another environment. Maybe I can create a prod. Then I will use the same module to deploy to prod. I'll use the same module to deploy to prod. I'll use the same module to deploy to every environment. And it makes my job easier because I don't have to do exactly the same configuration again. If there is any particular configuration that you want to do and you want all the environments to have it, all you just need to do is to go to where you created the modules and put that configuration there. For instance, now let's say I want all my module to have the same let's say I want all the module to have the same HTTP. There is this particular security tagging that is very, very important. So if I go to my EC2, if you scroll down, it's called the IMV version 2. It's always good to use version 2 instead of version 1. I'm going to quickly show you now. I can just search for it. That is IM. Let me do HTTP. Yeah, this. No, not this, not this. Endpoint. Yeah, HTTP token. Here it's for metadata, so it will use the IMDV version 2 instead of 1. If you use version 1, if anybody go to the version 2 will required, it will use required, but version 1 is optional. So when it is optional, it can either be option. If you use version 1, it can either be optional or required, but version 2 is required. So if you want to make sure that all your configuration use the version 2, which means that anybody that wants to interact with the AWS metadata in your account, they must use versions 2. So I can just put version 2 here. Then I need to go to my variable as well and also declare it. I mean, put it down in my variable. So now, instead of me allowing them to change that configuration, they can change the configuration, but I can put a default value there that every one of them will use. So if I want to use a default value, I don't have to put it as a variable. I just need to put it as a direct value here. Like this is the C module. So that's not, wait, let me clear my screen. So I want to have it inside here. This is true. Let me go. It's required. All right, it's not sure. It's not. I don't know what's going on there. But if you want to a specific value, if you want to a specific value, then like maybe you want to use something like cost center. You want a specific value. You can put the value here. Like let me say, let me look at the value, another value here. No, go back. So this is metadata option. So I can do an endpoint enabled. One is equal to true. Yeah, is you can use that value in here, but because of our time, I still quickly want to cover I want to cover count and for each. So count and for each, they are very easy. For instance, if you look at this my staging where I'm creating just one instance here. Okay, let me see. I mess up with something here. Let me see. I put them back. Something, what did I do here that's making a mess? Let me see. You say T token is not expected and attribute token is required. No, I've deleted it. So you shouldn't ask me again. Okay, variable. Yeah, I have it in variables. That's why you're asking that. Yeah, it's disappeared. So now, for instance, I created this instance now. If you want to have multiple of the same EC2, let's say your company asks you to create 4 of the same instance. So instead of creating multiple block, like having another block here, having another block here, then having another block here. So this is me creating 4 different instances. I just need to change their module. I might call this one EC1, or let's call it EC2 1, EC2 2. Then this one is going to be EC2 3. So we are creating 4 of them. Maybe that's what your company wants you to create. So instead of creating multiple block like this, you can use count and for each to do exactly the same thing. So for count, you just need to go below the source and just put count. Then how many do you want to create? 4. And this is it. So you can now do this. Instead of creating 4 different blocks, you can just put count is equal to 4. And if you run Terraform, you try to do Terraform plan, and you will see we want to create 4 instances for you. You want to create 4 instances because that is what you say. You say you should do instance. Okay, let me change that back to Terraform EC2. So I'm going to change it back to Terraform EC2. Terraform init, because I modify. Anytime you modify the module, you have to do Terraform init. So now it's clear that I can do Terraform plan. So with this, I'm expecting it's going to create 4. We want to create 4 instances for me. And instead of having 4 different blocks, you can just have 1 block and it creates 4 instances. You can see it says it's going to add 4. But one thing that you might think is that, well, all the configurations are going to be the same. What happens if you want to change the tag name? Because as it is now, all of them we use the same configuration. And if you go to the plan that we have, if you look at their tag name, you see it's going to name it tagging. If you go to the second one, it's going to name it tagging. If you go to the third one, tagging, and all of them is going to be the same thing. Can you make different configuration, especially tag name? Yes. So if you are using count, it will give you what is called count.index. The count.index is the position of a particular block. For instance, we are creating 4 blocks now. There will be a block at index 1. Index starts from a 0. There will be a block at index 0. There will be another block at index 1, another block at index 2, then another block at index 3. So if you look at our plan here, you will see, if you look at those one that is going to create, you see this one is at index 0. The first one is going to be created at index 0. The second one will be created at index 1. The third one will be created at index 2. And the fourth one will be created at index 3. So you can use that index to your own advantage. So for instance, if you want to give them a very different tag name, let's say you want to give them a very different tag name, let's call this one, let's use VM. So instead of it naming all of them VM, we can use VM. We can do something like this. VM, we want to have VM1, VM2, VM3, VM4. So what you can do is that at this point, you can call a $ bracket like this and put count index there. So this count index we turn, by the time we run Terraform, it will change this count index to the index to the index of that particular block. So the block at index 0, for block at index 0, it will change this one to 0. For block at index 1, it will change it to 1. For block at index 2, it will change it to 2. For block at index 3, it will change it to, for block at index 2, it will be 1, because index starts at 0. So, but if you don't want, because the first one is going to give us, let me even run it and quickly show you. If you do Terraform plan, now look what it's going to give us. We change the tag name. We want VM0, VM1, VM2, VM3, and things like that. So if you go up, you say a resource must be followed by at least one attribute access. Okay, let me see. What was this? A reference to a resource type must be followed by at least. Okay. Clear. Still give me that error. Let me seconds, guys. Okay, sorry. There is a mistake here. I think it's supposed to be count dot index, not count dash. It's count dot index. Okay, my credential has expired, so I need to quickly do control because the credential is just for 1 hour. So I need to delete this credential and put a new one. So go back here. I'm just going to quickly refresh this to get a new credential. Open. So connect back. So I need to put a new credential that lasts for just 1 hour. All right, can do Terraform plan now. And you can see we are having indexed VM3, VM2, VM1, and VM0. If you don't want VM0, it's not something like VM0. If you don't want VM0, what we just need to do, if you want it to actually start from VM1, at this staging plus, you can just go here, +1. So that 0 will turn to 1, 1 will turn to 2, 2 will turn to 3, and 3 will turn to 4. Oh, sorry. Now let's see again. The one that index of 0 before will now be at index of 1. The one at 1 will be index of 2. The one at 2 will be index of 3. And 3 will be at the index of 4. You can see now it started from. So if you go to the first one is going to start at 1. The second one is going to start at 2. And the third one is going to start at 3. And the fourth one is going to start at 4, VM4. So this is using count to create multiple resources at the same time. If you want to do for each, it's still exactly the same thing. But for each, it's more like you have to provide it a value that you want it to count for. So for instance, let me say inside the staging, let's say we have, let me go up here. Let's say we have a map called, let's say we have a tags. Maybe they provide us the tags, and the tags is in form of, let's say they provide us a tags, which is in form of, so for you to provide something like this here, there is a value. You can see that it's giving us an error, like this attribute is not expected here. But there is a particular attribute you can use to provide value there. You call it locals. So that locals, inside it, you can put your values here. So for this local now, I can now say inside this local, I want to have a tag called, let me say, VM1. So the tag use key value pair. let's say we have key 1 here. This is the first key and is equal to value. Let's just say value, use key value pair. So let's say we have second key, that is the second attribute, is equal to value 2. Let's call this one value 1 and this one value 2, and let's call this one value 3. Value 3 and key 3. So if we want the Terraform to create this 3 key, this 3, that means we want it to loop 3 times, then we have to provide it something so that it can count how many things is that particular thing, and it's going to create instance that equal the number of that particular value. You might provide it a map like this. In short, the default for each is map. So for you to use for each, you have to say for each, then you have to provide the key and value pair. So put this one aside for now. So you can actually put the key and value directly inside the for each like this. You can put the key and value directly inside the for each. You can put it directly inside the for each. So the system, excuse me, the system is going to loop, is going to say for each first one, each second, and each third. So it's going to create 3 instances for you. If you want to create 4 instances, then you can say for each of the 4 key, then create an instance for me. So you have to provide it a value. So the system is going to loop through each of the for loop, is going to provide, then it will now create instance that equal the number of the value for you. For example, the value might be, maybe they want you to create 4 instances and they give you an IP address that each of these instances you use this IP address. Then you can say, instead of using key, you can say instance 1 is equal to, then you specify the value to be the IP address, maybe 10.0.0.0. So instance 1, we use that IP address. Instance 2, we use its own IP address. Instance 3, we use its own IP address, and instance 4 like that. But here, let's just keep it simple and just let's call it key and value 1. That's 1, 2 will work. So here now, if I try to do plan, let's do plan and see what is going to happen here. Terraform plan. Okay, I need to remove the count. So this count does not work together with for each. So I'm just going to give it a sample. Let's just call it VM. Let's call it VM because you can only use count.index with count. There is another one that you can use with for each, but let's first test it out and see how many instances is this for each going to create for us. Now look at it, say it's going to create 4. Forget about the one that is trying to delete because we have one already that we deploy when we use default configuration, the default module. So that is the one that is trying to delete. But you can see it's going to create 4. If you had another one to hit and look at it, let's say the key is now 5 and this is 5, then it's going to start, it will want to create 5 because it's going to count how many number of the value that is provided. Then for each of those value and the key, for each of those key value pair is going to create 1 instance. You can now see it has turned to 5. So one thing that is available for you to use is, let's for instance say this value here, let's call it, let's say for let's rename this, let's call this, let's assume that the key are actually the tag name. So let's call it VM. So for VM, for the first VM, we have VM1, For the second VM, we have VM2. For the third, we have VM3, VM4, and VM5. So this, because they are two different sides, then it's either we use something to join them together, or we put double quotes like this. So I'm just going to use double quote like that because I don't want to join all of them together. So the way I'm going to do this to make it faster, I'll just do double quotes here, double quotes here. So now I have, so the key side, these are the key side. So let me put it up here so that you can see. These are the key, and this here are the values. So I'm just going to comment it out. These are the keys, and these are this side are the values. So for the key side now, for the value side, let's use different instance. Let's use different instance type. So I'm just going to call this one. Let's clear all of this. Let's call this T2. So I'm going to use T2 micro, T3 micro. This one is going to be T2 nano. This one is going to be T2 medium. And this one is going to be T2 large. So you can see now we have, let's say for instance, this is kind of the configuration you have. They give you the volume name, and they also give you the instance type, and they want you to create instance for each one of these. So you can still use for each. What we just need to do at the configuration level, at the instance level here. So we need to change the instance type. So instead of hard coding the instance type like this, then you can use the for each provide us what is called each key and each value. So the tag are at the key side. So if you want to reference the key, you just say each key. So when the Terraform started creating these 4 resources for us, the first resources will be at each key 1, the second one will be at each key 2, key 3, key 4, key 5. So instead of putting this one for the first block, it will use what we have here, because you say for each of the key, create 1 instances. So when it is creating the first instance, it's going to use this as the key. So instead of specifying this the value directly like here, like VM1, then it's going to change, it's going to use key, each key. So for the VM, actually the instance is at the value side. So the instance type will be each value, while the VM is at the key side. So the tag, while the tag is at the key side, so the tag will be each key. So if we do Terraform plan now, so now it will not have the same value for everyone, and it will not have the same instance type for everyone. It will use, now let's see. If you look, you want to create 5, right? So let's look at the first one. So it's going to start from here. This is the VM1. So if you go to the tag name, look at it, it's using VM1 as the tag name. And if you look at the instance type, if you go to the instance type, look at the instance type here, it's using T2 micro. If you go to the second one, the instance type here will be T3 micro, which is different. The next one will be T2 nano. The second to the last, medium, and we have the last one, T2 large. So it's using each of the value at that position to replace each key or each value that we put there. So I'm going to stop the class here. Let me clear this. I'm not going to deploy this because I don't want to deploy 5 instances. So I'm just going to change it back. Let's go back. Let's just cancel it. Let's turn it to just 1. Then instead of deploying 5, let's deploy just one. So it's still it can still use for each. So it's going to, because by the time it started counting, it will see only one, and it will only deploy for that one alone. And you can see it's only want to deploy for one, and I'll go ahead and tell it to apply it. So if you go to our AWS account now, we will see that something should be coming up. So let's refresh. Then we have another one coming up, and you can see we have another one coming up pending. So if you go back, what I want to do now is to now go delete everything. So I'll just do Terraform destroy. So when you create the resources, once you are done with the testing, make sure you destroy. Else, if you forget the Terraform, AWS might charge you if you have finished spending the free plan that they give you. So while we are waiting for this to finish, I'm going to delete that one. Then let me switch to the D module, to D module, and delete that one as well, because we create one there too. So while that one is running to be deleted, I will push all the code to the GitHub again. So before I push to the code to the GitHub, I want to remove all of the .terraform state. So I will delete this one too. I don't need all of them. The .terraform is the only thing I'm deleting there. Then, so I can push this and this to the GitHub. The module too, I can push that to the GitHub. I don't need this. Okay, let me quickly delete that before I move it. Yeah, it won't delete because I already deleted it, but that is fine. So, okay, my states too, I don't want to move states to the GitHub as well. I'm supposed to have moved the states to the backend, but there's no need. I will just delete it. I don't need it. So anybody that clone the repository, they should just run Terraform init, and they can deploy it to their own environment. So everything is clear now. I don't have any. You shouldn't put your terraform.tf state file in the GitHub, so that's why I'm deleting all of them. And I also delete the .terraform because I don't want to push it to my GitHub. It's going to weigh a lot. Although I have the git ignore, which also will prevent it from going, but I just want to be on the safer side. So to push this to the GitHub, I just need to do git add to add all of them. Then I need git commit to do dash. Git commit, I'm going to say updated. I'm going to just say the 6 training update. Then I can do git push -u origin, then the name of the the name of the branch, that is the 6. So I push this to the GitHub, then I will go to my GitHub and go and do a merge request. So you can see if I refresh this, you can see the is here. So I just need to do a pull request, then create a pull request. So you might, once the pull request is ready, you might want to send this to somebody to review for you if you are working in a team. And once they review it and they see your code is good, then they can merge it to the main repository. All right, I'm going to stop the class there. If you guys have any question for me, you can. If you have a question for me, you can put it in the comment box. Otherwise, I want to appreciate you guys for joining me today, and we continue the training tomorrow. On tomorrow's training, we are going to be, it's going to be like 1 hour, 30 minutes as well, because majority of what we are covering now, they are very very important, and it's not something we can just quickly cover within 1 hour if you want to understand it clearly. So for tomorrow agenda, we're going to look at Terraform functions. Terraform functions has a lot of submodules. You can have a function that is string function, numeric function, list function. There are a lot of them, but we will just quickly cover the one that we were able to cover. All right, if you guys do not have any question for me, I want to appreciate you guys for coming. Bye, guys. And if you enjoy our content, please subscribe and press the notification bell. And you can also as well share the channel to your friends.